R. Adams here is saying the out-of-town 17-year-old with an AR-15. R. Adams, if you're a libertarian, you don't believe in borders or gun laws, right?
Yeah, seriously, this whole out-of-state thing is a total red herring. The kid said on the stand his father lives there and his job was there, or at least one of his jobs was there. So it's his community. He had every right to be there. Make it sound, see, this is part of the narrative that they're putting there. They want you to sort of conflate, and I'm not sure of this comment, or maybe he's the victim here conflating. They want you to think of this kid as he's part of the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or the Three Percenters or something like that, but that's just not the case. And the testimony, the prosecution in the trial was not trying to connect him to that. They're not saying, oh yeah, on your Facebook you like show how you're a white pride guy or any of these kinds of things.
He was a
But
bootlicker. He was
yeah,
he
but so
was
the
like a cop
narrative,
lover.
yeah, he's like but like a local kid. He wanted to grow
Yeah,
up and be a
yeah.
firefighter kind of a
Yeah,
kid,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so but the idea that, oh, he crossed state lines with an AR-15 is like, oh no, he just went there LARPing essentially to be a cop, right? Pretending to be a cop, enforcing the law. But that's not the testimony. And that's not the prosecution's case. I mean, the prosecution essentially, from what I saw, and I didn't see it all, but I did watch quite a bit of it yesterday and a bit the day before that. Um, from what I can see of the prosecution's case here, they're not challenging the idea that this kid was scrubbing graffiti off the wall of the high school and was providing medical care to anyone on the hippie side or on the right winger side or whatever. If anyone needed medical care, he was going around saying medical, medical. And then, yeah, he had a rifle because he's in a dangerous area. And which, look, Johnny Cash makes an important point about bringing your guns to town. And like, I'm a big, pro gun guy in every way, but I recommend concealed carry. I don't like people carrying guns on their hips everywhere because I think that shit's provocative.
I'm a
And
concealed carry
there
guy
was
too, so
there was a
yeah.
libertarian at a Black Lives Matter rally here in Austin who the guy in the car, I think, was the aggressor. Now, first of all, these people should not have been out protesting, parading in traffic at night anyway. But that wasn't aggression. It was just stupid. But then this guy in the car essentially like, meh, meh, and goes through the crowd. And then the crowd, I don't know where they picked this up, Pete, but I've noticed this from protesters recently. That when a car tries to kind of run through the crowd, they all converge on the car. Instead of getting the hell out of the way, they all kind of converge on the car and make themselves more threatened, which is like what a cop will do, right? Jump in front of a car and then shoot at the guy and go, oh, wait, he was coming right at me or whatever, right? Well, so in this case, the people kind of descend on the car and the libertarian with an AR-15 on his chest, I think unnecessarily, I'm not saying illegally, but like he didn't have it slung over his shoulder. It's like at low ready. And he runs up to the guy with an AR. So the guy reaches out the window and shoots him with his Glock or his 45 or whatever it was and kills him. And now, in fact, the guy in the car is now going on trial. It took them months to finally decide, but they decided he was the aggressor since he was, intervening in the car. But the only reason that the guy is dead is because he had a rifle in his hands as he was running up to the guy in the car. Now, I don't think he was pointing it right at him, but you know what? I'm not so sure he had to be pointing it right at him. I don't know. So there is a Johnny Cash take your guns to town kind of thing where if this kid didn't have a gun, then he wouldn't have been under threat of having it taken from him. And then he wouldn't have had the need to use deadly force to protect himself from getting his gun taken away. So there is kind of a paradox there, whatever. However, screw that. It doesn't matter. He has the right. He was an invited guest, a welcome guest on property to help defend that property. He had the delegated right, from the owner of that property to be there to help. And he went at the part where the conflict broke out. He went there to put out a fire that someone was starting with a Duralog in the back seat of a car. And then I guess before that, and this was something that I just learned from some of the testimony. I forgot if I saw this clip on YouTube or if I saw this part of it live, where they were trying to set a dumpster on fire, and he was with the guys who stopped that from happening. And that was before he went down the street to go. Oh, I did see that live during the trial. They played that footage. And then it was after that he went down the street to put out the other fire. And so
That's when the mental patients started chasing after him and
yeah, and
everything like that. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, and this does go to me, the all important lesson here is, you don't really have a case like this where you have cameras in the courtroom on a murder trial very often. It's certainly not one that's so politicized left and right. You know what I mean? What really famous? You have like that lady in Florida that killed her kid, or like the Menendez brothers that murdered their parents or whatever. That, you know what I mean? That's not.
OJ.
But yeah, OJ. But OJ is the last one that was this kind of politicized. But
Yeah.
the
Oh
antics
no,
of
no,
that
no, no,
courtroom.
no, no, no. Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman.
Oh yeah. Was that televised, the trial?
I watched. I didn't
Oh,
watch
okay.
all of it, but I watched parts of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think this gives, because it's a white right wing kid who is being falsely, obviously is being overcharged and persecuted here, for political reasons, right? So that the local DA can make good at this kid's expense and all of that. That I hope that this is, sort of like when Donald Trump denounces Jeb Bush's brothers' wars. They're like, this is a chance for right wingers to take a red pill and see that, you know what, prosecutors are sometimes very bad people. And their job is getting convictions, man. They don't really care whether they're telling the truth. They
Getting
don't really care
pleas.
whether the
Their
cops
job
are
is
telling the
getting
truth.
pleas. They
I'm
don't
sorry?
want to go to their job is getting pleas. They
Yeah,
don't want to go
exactly.
to
That's a
trial.
great point. Yeah,
They
their
want to
job's
get
not going to
pleas.
trial at all. Their job is simply racking up convictions at any cost. And they will, ask anybody who's gone through the system, man. They're treated unfairly all the time. There's no way you could say, like, if you got charged with some crazy crime, wouldn't you, like, you kind of think ahead, like, you would try to explain to the prosecutor, no, man, it wasn't like that. See, or what, right? And like reason with them. But yeah, that's like, reasoning with a rabid animal. They're not
They don't
here
care.
for you. I told you before, Pete, about I had the Harris County Assistant District Attorney in my cab 20 years ago. She told me that their slogan around the district attorney's office in Houston is that if they really didn't do it, they'll get out on appeal. In other words, anyone the cops bring them, they nail them to the fucking wall.
Destroy
And
their
then
lives.
and
I
then the
mean, they
burden is
destroy their
on
fucking
them to
lives.
prove that they're innocent from inside a prison cell. And the burden is on them not to prove they're innocent. The burden is on them to prove that the judge made a major procedural error that prevented them from getting a fair trial, or that some new scientific method has been invented that can be, used to re-examine old evidence, or some crazy loophole. That's what it takes to get unconvicted, right? Is not proof of actual innocence. Not a new witness has come forward and says that she can provide an alibi. That's not good enough. That won't get you out, you know. But that's the way. Look, if you're an ADA, what are you going to do? Really make sure that you got the right guy? That's too much trouble. You got too many cases. So it's just flip the burger, put it on the bun, in the package, and out the window, man. And on to the next one, over and over again. It doesn't matter who they are. The cops brought them to us. They must have done something. That's the attitude. And so right wingers ought to, this is a window. This is for them to see. You think they treat Kyle Rittenhouse bad? Think of how they treat poor black kids with no lawyer at all, right? Think about how they treat the average poor schmuck who has at best a court appointed attorney who's got 175 cases this month and can't do a good job doing a single one of them, you know? And how many cases where they just got the wrong guy? How many cases where the cops couldn't catch the kid that ran fast, so they caught the kid that ran slow? And now he's the one that has to take the rap for whatever it is. And this happens all day, every day. There are thousands of innocent people, completely innocent, wrong guy, innocent people, or either wrong guy or completely irrationally overcharged people sitting in prison all across this country right now. That whole thing, I used to love Matlock so much when I was a kid, dude. It's kind of a funny, like when I was in high school, we had our Matlock club. We'd get all high and watch Matlock. But the thing is, like, nah, man, curse Andy Griffith for that. Because it ain't, what he should have done was he should have portrayed the way those courts really work, where the judge and the prosecutor are monsters and they don't give a damn whether, even when Andy Griffith gets the confession out of the bad guy on the stand, that they still try to proceed anyway. You ever remember The Simpsons where Bart's on trial for killing Principal Skinner? And then Principal Skinner, he was just buried under newspapers in his basement. And so he finally comes into the courtroom. And he tells the whole story. There I was, and then the newspapers fell on me. So I made a game of dribbling a basketball and then seeing if I could beat that record and all of this stuff, right? And then the prosecutor stands up and goes, Your Honor, we move that testimony be stricken from the record. Because he wants to go ahead and keep prosecuting Bart for murder anyway, even though the body is alive and right here in the courtroom. Like that's how it really is. And I hope people can see that. Like, in fact, if you watch the way the camera is set up, you're watching the defense attorney do the direct of the defendant here. And you can see the prosecutor, the ADA is right there in camera shots. You can see his face the whole time. And you can just see what a horrible guy this is, trying to figure out how he's going to get this kid Rittenhouse to stumble. Hey kid, don't you like playing Call of Duty? Don't you use an AR-15 and kill people when you play video games? Like, boy, talk about reaching desperately to try to figure out something to get this kid to say, yeah, boy, I really get bloodlusty when I play Call of Duty or whatever it is. Instead, the young man, the 18-year-old, is lecturing the adult that it's just a video game, dude. It's not real life, and all of this. It's a travesty. It's ridiculous to see.